Welcome to Books on Air, the podcast that tells the story behind the book. It includes insights from authors about how they compose their work, what inspires them, and what they hope you'll take away from their book. Here's your host for this episode of Books on Air, Lorna Gladstone.
Welcome again to Books on Air. We are pleased today to have as our guest Frank Rothe. He is the author of Number Theory and Modern Algebra, as well as Classics in Graph Theory. I'm not going to go into those right yet because he is also an extraordinary flautist. And this is one of his passions, mathematics on one side and the flute on the other. So I think we're going to start with the flute and then move into the math. If I understand correctly, when you were in your early teens, you started playing the flute. What influence caused that to be the instrument that you picked up?
Well, it was just because I had already the recorder played very much, but I had always a hard time to keep the rhythm. But also because I could begin to read the music and do this myself, and was also willing to do it and to invest time in it. And then over the years, got acquainted with Bach's flute music and had a school friend with whom I played much together. And also my father was a Rotary member, and I could play Mozart flute quartetto with some of the Rotary people. And then over the time, I got better in keeping the rhythm and liked it very much and didn't give it up, but improved over the years and began also to play the piano.
So hold on a second. Don't go too fast through all the years. We want to know, for instance, was there a major teacher involved? Did you start with lessons and then rapidly go on to work without a teacher? Or did you have teachers through many years? What was the situation in terms of that learning process?
Yeah, I was lucky in the music conservatory in Karlsruhe, Germany. Was a very good flutist, Nikolaus Delius, who was very careful, and later got on to a university in Freiburg. And then also I had a teacher who was a soloist with a radios there in that. And I was lucky to have very good teachers. That was also. And I was lucky to have a school friend who was playing very good piano and with whom together I did music.
So was that person, I think you mentioned that person, Thomas Turner, who was the pianist?
Thomas Turner was a piano professor, which I met later on at University of Charlotte, where I have been since 27 years now, before I retired. And Thomas Turner retired quite early, and he was interesting in Schubert's, mainly the withered flowers of Schubert for flute and piano, and also the Poulenc flute sonata we played together with him. And he liked this very much, that kind of music, which also stresses the piano, of course, very much, not only the flute, and is even more heavy loaded for the piano. But there I got acquainted to a much higher level of performing.
So that when you say you were acquainted with a higher level of performing, how old were you at that point? Approximately. When did that occur in your life?
Yeah, that was 20 years ago now. It is now gone already, because I don't get younger, but that occurred rather in the middle of my life, and it was more very much luck of course involved. But Thomas Turner liked the flute also, and Schubert music, and then I got acquainted with Schubert and with Poulenc's flute music, and with other of those of the French flute school, which is much more involved than Bach, and more difficult to put the sound together and make everything sound right there.
Do you play every day?
I practiced every day until I got really my eye problems and could not read the written music at all. But up to then, as I had Thomas Turner, I practiced regularly. For the 10 years I worked together with him, I was really very, very eagerly practicing there.
But you had to make a choice at some point, a professional choice between the flute and mathematics.
Yes, of course. That was mainly because it was so much easier to get the chance of a job in mathematics. Sorry. And also because I felt already I'm not so perfectly keeping up the rhythm as it was necessary in the orchestra already. I learned this only rather lately. And then there are so little flute for somebody who wants to make music together professionally. It would be better to start with violin or cello or clarinet. There's much more demand.
You have, in fact, put out 3 CDs with Thomas. Yes.
Yes.
And your favorite of those?
The second one, Serenade, is my favorite. There I have some own arrangements. I thought I cannot only play the classic pieces, which Rampal plays better anyway. I made some arrangements of Schumann's fantasy pieces, which are for clarinet or for cello, and I knew them because I played the piano part together with cello, which played my son, and I made an arrangement for flute and piano of that piece. But it was very easy because it's also for clarinet there by Robert Schumann already. It's a well-known piece, and I have this recorded on the CD Serenade as well. Maybe that is one of my favorites.
Good. And that is available if you look up Franz's full name, and the last name Rothe is spelled R-O-T as in Tom, H-E. And all 3 CDs are available on Amazon as well as on CD Universe. And I have been listening a bit, and I strongly recommend that you do too. He really is very modest about his abilities. So this is still very much part of your life today and has been for ever since childhood, really, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. At the same time, or around the same time that you became so interested in the flute, you also had a growing interest in mathematics. And from what I understand, well, of course, you were learning at school, in high school, you were learning math, but there was also another person involved in your life who worked with you. And who was that? And what was the work that you did together when you were still a teenager?
I became interested in the geometry very much and geometric constructions as I was about 12, and also how to divide a circle, to measure the area of a circle, to divide it in small triangles, and the beginning of calculus. And then I looked at maximum, minimum of graph and graph functions. And then my parents invited a physics student at that time with whom I spent the Sundays very much. And we did there also very much math, besides also going around for some long walks and talking about physics and so on. That was the beginning of my interest in math, really.
So it was through the interaction with someone else that you realized how fascinating it was for you.
Yes, but from this Klaus Schubert, I had very much encouragement, and it didn't interfere with my school. That was a Sunday thing somehow.
So where did you do your undergraduate work and where your graduate work in mathematics? And who were the people who really influenced you in both of those?
I did my undergraduate work still in Karlsruhe and the graduate in ETH Zurich. And there it was mainly the Professor Henrici, with whom I did my thesis and who was interested to encourage me to go further to PhD. And then I went to Tübingen, and there it was Professor Hadler, with whom I worked for many years, and who encouraged me to try a university career. And they worked very much on differential equations during that time.
Mm-hmm. And so when you were done with your doctorate, you came to the U.S. to teach. Is that how it happened?
Yeah, I came to to Charlotte, at first to Chapel Hill, on the recommendation of Professor Henrici from ETH Zurich mainly, and also from other teachers from ETH Zurich with whom I worked there together. That was really the lucky point in my life that I could have that chance there.
You were there at Charlotte for 27, 28 years. So it's been a good and rich career, has it not?
Yes, ma'am. The influencing men were really helping me, and I had already enough publications by the encouragement of Professor Hadler in Tübingen, and there in differential equations I worked for a very good while. And then in Charlotte, I got more involved. I had to teach more, and there I got involved in the geometry course and in the graph theory course. That is more about which I have now published after my retirement, because I have there the time to put together all my notes from the class and make them more detailed with all the figures. That's an important part in geometry, and I like to do this also in graph theory, the figures with all the care and the proofs. And from this work, which has grown over the year, I have to put together those two books there, one on number theory, modern algebra, and one on graph theory.
So tell us in layman's terms, what is number theory?
Number theory deals with prime numbers and with patterns which come up, which are hidden, and one discovers in numbers at first by putting dots in some orderly manner into triangles or squares and counting them, and that was the ancient beginning. And the prime numbers, which can only be divided by itself and one, and how they occur in a rare but somehow random, but nevertheless somehow systematic way. And the theorems about the prime numbers, they give then rise to many computational problems, and this is also interested for encoding secret messages.
And when you say encoding secret messages, these are used commonly now in big companies, I imagine.
They are used commonly in everyday life for all computer communications, and there one needs a public code encryptions, and there the prime numbers are the first choice, which is now very popular also. But in my book, I begin and I talk about all these topics, not only abstractly, but also with computations, which begin with a graphing calculator and then also with programs, Mathematica. And I have worked out many codes, more than I could do in the schools. And I talk also about geometric construction.